Dear students, welcome back to American National Government. Today we're talking about the Articles of Confederation. Let's take a look at what this is. Essentially, it's a political document. Remember political documents? We looked at Magna Carta, we looked at the other kinds of documents, such as the US Constitution. The Article of Confederation is the earliest form of political document for the US. It forms the Confederation of States, and it is the earliest form of government, right? Articles of Confederation. The pros and cons of the Articles of Confederation. So the major problem is it gave too much power to states. States meaning the 50 states, right? But in this case, we have 13 states originally. So states could print money of their own, and they did. They could tax their populations. They could operate like independent states with respect to foreign countries. That is, they could engage in treaties, they could engage in trade, all kinds of things. States could also have armies. They did not trust the central government. They did not want to finance a central government army because they thought, what if the central government becomes too powerful? We don't really want that. And we'll look into that why. And yet the central government was in charge of national defense against foreign attacks, but they could not fend off enemy attacks as they had no money. So all this creates a weak union, right? Another problem was the central government was weak on financial issues. It could not raise taxes. It did not have the monopoly over printing currency. It could not stop the British goods from flooding the local markets, as it could not have import controls. It had to pay debt to the financiers of the US American Revolution, right? The French and the Netherlands helped, and yet it could not pay them. There was also no national judicial system. States made laws on criminal and civil issues. For example, the southern states allowed slavery to be legal. So this became a problem for northern states that wanted to abolish slavery. And we'll come back to that. So not having any defense, no national defense, we see basically a lot of riots and rebellions happening all throughout the US after 1776. In Massachusetts, farmers revolted in 1786. They call this the Shays Rebellion. Basically, they owed taxes and debt to banks and other lenders, and the central government had promised to pay off the debt for fighting in the American Revolution. So they enticed them to go fight the British and said, look, if you fight, we'll pay off your debt. But the central government had not been able to pay off the debt as they had no money. So this created these rebellions. And then basically the governor of Massachusetts and the banks in Massachusetts had called for army support, but there was nothing. So the rebellion had to be crushed by private militia. This was very expensive. And because of this, the 13 states realized that the Federation was a very bad idea. And then they tried to change the laws. However, they experienced a problem. Each state had one vote according to the Articles of Confederation. But to change the article, you needed unanimous vote. So it kept failing. So let's look at some of the processes. In the meantime, ask yourself this question: which period in English history does this remind you of? Where the central government is not very stable and you have all kinds of powerful states or, other kinds of competition to the power of the state. So let's see. For me, it reminded me of the Magna Carta era, right? Where you have the lords are fighting the king and telling him, look, we have a lot of soldiers and we've surrounded your fort, and therefore, central government, you have to listen to whatever we say, right? And this is the situation with the 13 American states at this time. And it's also like a Hobbesian nightmare because Thomas Hobbes is proposing that individuals should have liberty, but we also need law and order. And for Hobbes, law and order is most important for the survival for peace, basically. If you don't have law and order, if you don't obey whoever the king is, then basically you'll end up destroying the place. Quiz yourself. Let's take some time to look at these questions. What are the Articles of Confederation? Raise your hand to what you think it is. 1, it's a piece of paper. 2, it's a legal document. 3, it's a law of the land which determined how the American government was set up in the early years of American independence. 4, it's still how the US political system is organized. 5, all of the above. So here, you can tell if you've been studying what the correct answer is, right? Otherwise, you're going to have a confused look on your face right now. And I can imagine that in my class, actually, when I teach face-to-face, I see all the confused faces and I know exactly who has been studying and who has not. The articles gave US states 1, no power at all. 2, some powers. 3, no powers, and all the powers were reserved for the federal government. 4, most of the powers. 5, all of the above. Okay, so here again, more confused faces will arise. So these are good questions. Take a look at these one at a time. You can always scroll back and look at these questions, right? Let's talk a bit about the Constitution. So the Articles of Confederation needed to be changed, right? So in 1786, 2 states, Maryland and Virginia, call for changes. However, only 5 states show up. Not enough votes. You need unanimous, right? So until 1789, they kept trying. The Constitutional Convention took place in Philadelphia in 1887. This was the convention essentially is trying to establish a new type of government. The new type of document is called the Constitution. Alexander Hamilton and Madison asked all states to send people. All but Rhode Island's attended. That means everybody else was against it. Then they decide to create a new type of government. So here I made a mistake. It's all but Rhode Island's attend. So Rhode Island's did not attend. So there was a desire to change. The only issue dividing the North and the South is slavery at this time. North wants to abolish slavery, South wants to keep it. So they have an issue about whether they should have slavery in the wording of the Constitution, whether it should be the law of the land. So let's stop here for today. Next time, we'll talk a little bit about the labor situation in the US.